The rain came down in sharp, angry sheets, hammering against the city like a war drum. Inside the sleek glass tower of Blake Industries, Nathan Blake stood frozen, drenched from the storm, staring at the sight that would dismantle everything. He thought he knew. There, tangled in a mess of silk sheets and whispered betrayal, were Sophia and Evan, two faces that once held his trust, now twisted with guilt and fear. His heart didn't race. It sank, heavy and numb, dragging every fragment of his old life down with it. No words left his lips, only silence, heavier than the rain hammering against the penthouse windows. Before we continue with the story, tell us where you're watching from. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the story. Sophia scrambled upright, the sheet clutched to her chest like it could shield her from the truth clawing into the room. Nathan, wait, it's not what it looks like, she stammered, her voice breaking against the walls. Evan, ever the coward when it truly mattered, fumbled for his clothes, his face pale, his hands trembling. Nathan's jaw tightened, the muscle flexing once before he turned, the sound of his footsteps slicing through the static-filled air. He didn't slam the door. That would give them too much satisfaction. No. He left with the cold finality of a man who would never return. The elevator ride down was endless, a coffin sliding silently to the ground. Nathan pressed his forehead against the chilled glass, the city blurring beyond into rivers of light. Memories stabbed him from all sides, Sophia laughing under fireworks on New Year's, Evan's hand clapping his shoulder after his first billion-dollar deal. All lies. All props in a play he hadn't known he was starring in. The betrayal wasn't new. Betrayal never was. What made it hurt was the realization that he had allowed it. He didn't check into a hotel that night. Hotels were for men still trying to impress someone. Nathan disappeared into a shadow apartment he kept for emergencies, the kind with blackout windows and an address no one could trace. The whiskey was cheap because it didn't need to be good. It needed to be fast, burning down his throat with the honesty no one else seemed capable of giving him. In the quiet, he sat by the window watching the city throb and breathe and pretend, just like he had. Morning scraped its way into the world with grey fingers. Nathan hadn't slept, but his mind had settled into something worse than rage. Calculation. Revenge wasn't an impulse, it was an art form. Sophia thought she had wounded him. Evan thought he could replace him. They didn't understand yet. He hadn't lost his power. He had simply lost his patience. And a man like Nathan Blake, untethered by love or loyalty, was a man the world should fear. It was during a coffee run that the solution walked right into him. Literally. She was balancing 3 lattes and a paper bag of pastries, her sneakers slipping on the rain-slick pavement. Nathan caught her instinctively, his hands strong and unyielding around her arms. Her face snapped up, eyes wide, mouth forming an apology. Before she could breathe, she wasn't beautiful in the way Sophia was. She was real, tangible, a soul not yet hollowed out by the hunger for power. "Sorry," she gasped, trying to steady herself, cheeks flushing pink. Nathan found himself studying her. The tiny freckle near her left eye, the tired determination in her posture, the way she didn't linger for attention. She apologized again and hurried off, disappearing into the crowd. But something lingered. A pulse, a possibility. In that brief collision, Nathan saw the wild card he needed. Someone unexpected. Someone they would never see coming. Back at the office, the walls felt different, smaller. His empire, once his fortress, now felt more like a gilded cage. His assistant, cold and efficient, slid a tablet across his desk. "Your morning briefings." He barely glanced at it. Instead, he turned to the window, the city laid out like a chessboard beneath him. Pieces moved slowly here, predictable and safe. Nathan didn't want safe anymore. He wanted war. And to win a war, he needed a weapon no one would recognize. Hours later, he found her again. Olivia Brooks, 26 years old, waitress, night school student, clean record, debt up to her eyebrows, no family connections that mattered, invisible to the elites, invisible to everyone. Except Nathan. He studied her file like a blueprint. She had grit, she had desperation, she had nothing to lose and everything to gain. Perfect. The offer came 2 days later, under the soft glow of a coffee shop. Chandelier. Olivia's hands shook slightly as she read the contract he placed before her. "You want me to pretend to be your fiancé," she repeated, voice flat with disbelief. Nathan leaned back, swirling his coffee, letting the tension thicken. "Not pretend," he said softly. "Become, for 6 weeks, full commitment, full transformation." She stared at him like he'd lost his mind. Maybe he had, but insanity had its uses. "What's in it for me?" she asked finally, her voice low, measured. Nathan smiled, slow and knowing. "Freedom." She flinched like the word physically struck her. He pushed a second sheet across the table, a list of debts, medical bills, eviction notices, a future already dying before it had a chance to breathe. "I clear it all, plus 6 figures, cash." Her eyes darted between the papers, between the promise and the risk, hope and fear warring in her bones. "And you?" she asked, voice cracking slightly. Nathan's smile faded into something colder. "I get what I need." He didn't elaborate. He didn't need to. The weight of the truth was heavy enough between them. For a long moment, Olivia said nothing. Just stared at the signature line, the pen, the tiny abyss waiting for her leap. Outside, the rain softened into mist, as if the world itself were holding its breath. She signed, not with flourish, not with hope, with resignation. Nathan folded the contract neatly, slid it into his briefcase and stood. "Your life," he said, tossing a black card onto the table, "starts now." Olivia sat there long after he left, the weight of her decision sinking into her skin like ink into paper. She wasn't naive. She knew there would be a cost. Nothing in. This life came clean. Especially not the salvation offered by men like Nathan Blake, especially not when the real war had barely begun. Olivia barely slept that night. She lay on the thin mattress in her cramped apartment, staring at the cracked ceiling, the contract replaying in her mind like a cursed lullaby. What had she done? Signed away her identity to a stranger with shark eyes and a voice too calm to be safe. But every time fear gnawed at her, another truth answered back. She had no other way out. Sometimes survival didn't look like hope. It looked like surrender. The next morning, a sleek black car idled outside her building, a silent sentinel, against the graffiti and broken dreams lining the sidewalk. Olivia hesitated at the door, clutching a duffel bag stuffed with everything she owned that mattered. She could still walk away, pretend none of it happened, but the weight of every unpaid bill, every final notice taped to her door, shoved her forward. She slid into the leather seat without a word, heart hammering. Nathan was waiting at a townhouse she had only ever seen in magazines. Pristine white columns, wrought iron gates, a private universe carved out of chaos. He didn't greet her with a smile. He didn't need to. Instead, he handed her a folder thicker than a textbook. "Your schedule," he said. "Study it, live it, breathe it." Olivia flipped through pages of appointments, stylists, diction coaches, etiquette lessons, media consultants. They weren't changing her. They were erasing her. Inside the townhouse, the walls whispered wealth. Crystal chandeliers, oil paintings. Older than her entire bloodline, the faint scent of something floral and impossibly expensive. Clara, Nathan's assistant, appeared like a wraith from a side corridor. Slim, severe, radiating judgment from her perfect posture. "She'll need everything," Clara said briskly, eyeing Olivia like a contractor surveying a demolition site. "Clothes, hair, teeth, voice. Olivia flinched but kept her chin up. She wasn't here to be liked. She was here to survive. The transformation began immediately. Hair, stripped of its natural texture, dyed into rich waves that caught the light. Just so. Nails manicured until her hands no longer looked like they had ever scrubbed dishes. Teeth whitened, eyebrows sculpted. Trainers rewired her walk, her posture, even how she tilted her head when she listened. Olivia endured it all without a word, retreating into a part of herself that couldn't be touched, no matter how they tried. Nathan watched from a distance, rarely intervening. When he did, it was surgical, a nod here, a correction there. "She smiles too much," he said once. "Real power doesn't beg for approval." Olivia heard him, but she filed it away, silently. Power, approval, two sides of a coin she had never owned. Yet she began to study him too, how he spoke without rushing, how he filled a room without raising his voice, how he made you feel like you were the only person alive, until he chose to forget you. Late at night, when the townhouse emptied of consultants and stylists, Olivia sat by the giant bay window, tracing constellations in the Manhattan sky with her fingertip. Was she still herself under all this polish? Or had she already been replaced by the ghost they were constructing? Some nights, the fear hollowed her chest. Other nights, ambition curled in her gut like fire. Maybe she wasn't just surviving. Maybe she was learning, preparing. The first test came sooner than expected. A charity dinner, low profile but crucial. Nathan explained it like a military briefing. Everyone important is there. Smile, engage. But never overshare, control the room, without letting them see you're controlling it. Olivia memorized his instructions like scripture. She wore a satin dress that clung to her new frame and heels that made her feel like she was walking a tightrope. Clara adjusted her hair one final time. "Remember," she whispered, "you're not Olivia Brooks anymore. You're Olivia Marlowe." The dinner was a sea of calculated laughter and predatory smiles, men who thought they owned the world, women who sharpened kindness into knives. Olivia felt like a lamb at a masquerade ball, but she kept Nathan's. A voice in her head controlled the room. She glided across the floor, smiled when appropriate, nodded at just the right angles. And when a billionaire's wife cornered her with thinly veiled suspicion, "And where did you two meet, dear?" Olivia lied with terrifying ease. "Florence," she said smoothly, feigning nostalgia. "Summer symposium on digital. Futures." Nathan, who had been watching from a distance, tilted his glass slightly in approval. Olivia's pulse raced. She had passed her first test. For the rest of the night, she floated from conversation to conversation, a ghost wearing, human skin absorbing every glance, every calculation. They didn't see the waitress anymore. They saw a mystery, and mystery in their world was more powerful than gold. Afterward, Nathan joined her in the car, the silence between them heavy with unspoken things. Finally, he said, "You did well." Olivia turned to look at him, exhaustion making her bold. "You mean I fooled them?" Nathan's mouth twisted into something almost like a smile. "Isn't that what life is?" She stared at him, realizing for the first time that Nathan Blake wasn't a man. He was a mask stitched together by necessity and ambition. Back at the townhouse, Olivia collapsed into the silk sheets of a bed too big for her thoughts. Sleep came in fractured pieces. In her dreams, she wore a crown made of glass, each step forward shattering it further, until blood dripped from her scalp and into her eyes. She woke, gasping, the morning light too bright, too clean for the nightmare, still clinging to her. Nathan was already gone by the time she came downstairs. A note waited for her by the espresso machine. "Meeting at the Blake Foundation offices. Be ready. This is the first time you'll be seen publicly as more than a curiosity." Olivia folded the note carefully, as if it might bite her. Today wasn't just a test. It was the first shot across the bow. the first step into a world that didn't care if she drowned. She caught her reflection in the mirror on the way out. A stranger stared back, poised, polished, dangerous. Olivia Marlowe. Olivia Brooks. Somewhere between the two, a woman was forming. Someone who didn't need saving anymore. Someone who would tear down anyone who tried to shove her back into invisibility, including Nathan Blake himself, if it came to that. The offices of the Blake Foundation rose like a temple of polished stone and ambition, tucked between skyscrapers that stabbed the morning sky. Olivia's heels clicked sharply against the marble floors as Clara led her through the lobby, past glass sculptures and curated photo ops of Nathan's smiling alongside politicians. Every detail of the building screamed control, perfection, image, over reality. Olivia felt a tremor under her skin, not fear this time, but something sharper, anticipation. Nathan was already waiting by the conference room, his phone tucked into his pocket as he watched her approach. His eyes flickered briefly, assessing, approving, before he turned to the room full of journalists and influencers buzzing behind the glass. "Smile," he murmured without looking at her. "But not too much. You're not grateful. You're inevitable." Olivia swallowed the rising nerves and nodded once, stepping into the lion's den with her chin high. The conference began with a blur of introductions. Nathan spoke first, charming and glacial all at once, presenting Olivia as the new face of a philanthropic initiative focused on education access. It was a lie so elegant it shimmered like a diamond. No one questioned how a woman with no public history had risen overnight to prominence. In their world, if something glittered enough, no one cared to look beneath. Olivia smiled, answered a few rehearsed questions, and let herself become the myth they were building. But not everyone was fooled. Halfway through the Q&A, a journalist, Olivia hadn't been prepped on, raised her hand. Mid-30s, sharp blazer, sharper eyes. "Ms. Marlowe," she said, "we couldn't find any record of your previous philanthropic work. Could you share a bit more about your background?" The room shifted, subtle but electric. Nathan's body tensed imperceptibly. Olivia felt it and knew this was the first crack in the facade. She didn't panic. She inhaled once, shallow and clean, and met the journalist's gaze. "Of course," she said smoothly. "Most of my efforts were private, community-driven projects. I never sought credit. I believe true impact doesn't need a spotlight." A beat, a pause. Then she added, smiling faintly, "But perhaps it's time to change that." The tension diffused. Laughter rippled, cameras flashed. Nathan's fingers, hidden under the table, relaxed against his thigh. After the event, the applause still ringing in her ears, Nathan cornered her in the hallway. His hand brushed her elbow, the barest touch, but enough to still the spinning world around her. "You lied well," he said, voice low, unreadable. Olivia looked up at him, heart hammering. "Isn't that what you wanted?" she asked. For the first time, something vulnerable, almost wounded, flickered across his face. Then it was gone, replaced by polished steel. The car ride back was silent, Manhattan blurred by in streaks of color and noise. Olivia stared out the window, her reflection fractured by raindrops, wondering if the girl, who once dreamed of making a difference, would even recognize the woman she was becoming. She thought of the journalist's eyes, the subtle accusation beneath the question. How long before more questions came? How long before the world Nathan dragged her into demanded blood? That night, Nathan summoned her to the library, a cavernous room of dark wood and older secrets. A fire crackled in the massive hearth, casting their shadows onto ancient tomes. "We need to tighten your story," Nathan said, pouring 2 glasses of whiskey without asking if she wanted one. "There will be more digging now." Olivia accepted the drink, the glass heavy and cold in her palm. "And if they find the truth?" she asked. He studied her for a long moment, something almost sad slipping into his features. Then we rewrite it faster than they can catch up. Olivia sipped the whiskey, the burn grounding her. You always have an answer, she murmured. Nathan smiled grimly. That's why I'm still standing. For a moment, the firelight painted him as something almost human, tired, battered, but unbroken. Then the mask snapped back into place. The next week blurred into a frenzy of appearances. Art gallery openings, charity auctions, private dinners in glass towers. Olivia adapted faster than anyone had expected, even Nathan. She became a chameleon, sliding into conversations about global markets and humanitarian efforts with effortless grace. Some nights, when she caught Nathan watching her across a crowded room, something unspoken passed between them. Pride, regret, a warning neither dared to voice. But the pressure was growing. Sophia hadn't been silent all this time. One afternoon, while reviewing press strategies with Clara, an envelope arrived, no return address. Inside, a single photograph of Olivia. Not from any recent event. No, this one was old, tattered, Olivia in a waitress uniform, balancing trays at a greasy diner, sweat shining on her forehead, and scrawled across the bottom, in red ink, "She's not who you think she is." Clara's face paled when she saw it. Olivia stared at the photo, feeling a distant version of herself staring back. A ghost. A warning. When Nathan saw it, his reaction was colder. He didn't ask if it was real. He didn't ask what it meant. He simply shredded it, fed the pieces to the fireplace and said, "Get ready. The real war's about to start." That night, Olivia couldn't sleep. She wandered the townhouse like a ghost, every polished surface reflecting a version of herself she didn't recognize. She wasn't afraid of being exposed. She was afraid of realizing that maybe she belonged more to the myth than to the girl she used to be. That maybe survival demanded not just wearing a mask, but becoming it. And somewhere, across the city, Sophia Monroe watched news clips of Nathan and Olivia with a smile sharpened by revenge. She had bled once. She had suffered in silence. But now it was her turn to pull the strings, and the first string she would cut would be trust. The first attack came not with fire, but with whispers. At first, Olivia barely noticed. A few odd glances at charity events, a few conversations that dried up the moment she approached. But slowly, the undercurrent grew stronger, darker, more deliberate. Influential voices began to question her. Origins, her sudden rise. It wasn't public yet, no articles, no scandals, just the slow, insidious erosion of trust. And in this world, perception was everything. Nathan saw it too. He didn't speak much, but the tension in his jaw grew tighter by the day. He began fielding calls behind closed doors, calls that ended with curt goodbyes and whiskey poured straight without ice. Olivia watched from a distance, the fear coiling inside her. Sophia was moving, carefully, methodically. She wasn't here to expose Olivia. Not yet. She was here to make everyone doubt first, to plant seeds of suspicion that would bloom into ruin. One evening, during a gala at the Metropolitan Museum, the first real blow landed. Olivia was halfway through a conversation with a senator's wife when a tall, icy blonde woman approached, champagne flute in hand, wearing a smile like a blade. "Olivia Marlowe, isn't it?" she purred, loud enough to draw nearby attention. Olivia nodded, cautious. "Tell me," the woman continued, voice dripping mockery, "what's it like to go from slinging pancakes to champagne in under 6 months?" The room froze. Olivia's chest tightened. She smiled, masking the tremor beneath her ribs. "I wouldn't know," she replied, voice steady. "I've always preferred caviar." A few scattered chuckles rippled, but the damage was done. The woman, a known friend of Sophia, winked before drifting away, leaving a wound bleeding. Quietly beneath Olivia's carefully stitched persona, Nathan's hand found her back minutes later, his touch grounding her to the marble beneath her heels. "We knew it was coming," he said softly, too low for anyone else to hear. Olivia swallowed hard, forcing herself to breathe. "It's not just words anymore," she whispered. Nathan's gaze hardened. "No, it's war." Later, in the car, the silence between them crackled with things neither wanted to admit. Olivia pressed her forehead against the cold glass, watching the city bleed past. "How do we fight something that lives in every shadow?" she asked. Nathan didn't answer immediately. His fingers tapped against the leather seat, a rhythm of war drums. Finally, he said, "We outlast it." It wasn't comforting. It wasn't even hopeful. It was just real. And somehow, that honesty steadied her more than any empty reassurance could have. Olivia closed her eyes, memorizing the sound of rain against the windshield, preparing herself for a battle she hadn't asked for, but could no longer avoid. The following week, Sophia escalated. Olivia's old life, the one she had buried beneath silk dresses and whispered lies, was dragged into the light. Tabloids splashed grainy photos of her serving coffee in a grease-stained apron. Ex-co-workers gave colorful interviews, painting her as an ambitious nobody who had somehow conned Nathan Blake. Headlines screamed, "From diner girl to dynasty. Is Olivia Marlowe a fraud?" The internet, always hungry for blood, devoured it. Olivia sat in the townhouse library, the newspaper spread open on the table in front of her. Her hands didn't shake. She didn't cry. She just stared, hollow, at the stranger wearing her face on the page. Nathan entered the room quietly, stopping, a few feet away. "You don't have to see that," he said. Olivia laughed once, a broken, bitter sound. "Of course I do. It's the only version of me they'll believe now." Nathan crossed the space between them and closed the paper with one decisive motion. His voice was low, firm. "This doesn't define you." Olivia looked up at him, the fire in her chest burning away the last of her self-pity. "No," she said, "but it's the only story they'll tell unless we write a better one." Nathan's lips curled into a smile, small, dangerous. "Then let's give them something they can't ignore." Their next move wasn't about defense, it was offense. Clara pulled strings Olivia hadn't known existed, arranging interviews, charity projects, new alliances. They flooded the media with a different narrative, one of resilience, authenticity, transformation. Olivia wasn't running from her past anymore, she was owning it. In one interview, she looked straight into the camera and said, "I've been underestimated my whole life. It's my favorite mistake people make, but every move forward came with backlash." Sophia counted every story, leaked old emails, rumors of staged romances. She didn't care about truth, she cared about rot, and rot spread faster than honesty ever could. One night, Olivia found an envelope tucked into her bedroom mirror. No note, no return address, just a single sentence printed in block letters. "You can become her, but you'll never replace her." Her blood ran cold. Nathan found her sitting on the edge of the bathtub, the note clutched in her hand. He didn't say anything at first. He just knelt in front of her, resting his forehead against her knees. For the first time, the invincible Nathan Blake looked tired, vulnerable. "She's not trying to take you down," he said quietly. "She's trying to make you believe you don't belong." Olivia threaded her fingers through his hair, grounding them both. "Then let's make her regret ever doubting me." At the next major event, Olivia stepped onto the red carpet not as a pawn, not as a mystery, but as a force. She wore a gown like molten gold, her head held high, her smile sharp enough to cut. Nathan stood beside her, no longer her handler, but her equal. Cameras flashed, reporters shouted, but Olivia heard only the pounding of her own heart. Not fear, not rage, power, real and terrifying. And somewhere beyond the velvet ropes, hidden in the sea of faces, Sophia watched. Her nails dug crescents into her palms. For a moment, she almost admired Olivia. Almost, but admiration wasn't what burned in Sophia's chest. It was something older, hungrier. Revenge wasn't about winning a battle. It was about breaking something so completely that it could never be rebuilt. Sophia smiled, a slow, venomous curve of her lips. The next strike wouldn't just smear Olivia's name, it would destroy her soul. It started with a leak, a whisper. In a tabloid no one respected until it was too late. An anonymous source claiming to have documents linking Nathan Blake to an embezzlement scandal from nearly a decade ago. At first, it was easy to dismiss. Nathan had weathered storms before, but this time the rumors carried teeth. Dates, numbers, transactions, things too detailed to ignore. And slowly, the walls that protected him began to shake. Olivia, first, heard about it during a lunch meeting with investors. The buzz slid across the table like poison, masked behind tight smiles and polite half-questions. "Any thoughts on the financial audit rumors?" a board member asked casually, dabbing his mouth with a linen napkin. Olivia smiled, serene, but inside her heart sank. They weren't asking, they were warning her. The foundation Nathan had built wasn't just cracking, it was crumbling. When she confronted him that night, Nathan stood by the window, Manhattan sprawling behind him like a graveyard of broken promises. "It's not true," he said, voice hollow. "Not the way they'll make it seem." Olivia crossed the room slowly, searching his face for something, anger, denial, fear. What she found was worse. Shame. "Tell me everything," she said, her voice gentler than she felt. Nathan exhaled, long and ragged, and the story spilled out. 10 years ago, Nathan had partnered with a small, aggressive venture firm during the rise of Blake Industries. They had laundered profits through fake charities to inflate valuations. Nathan claimed he hadn't known at first, but once he did, he had chosen silence over scandal. "I thought I could fix it quietly," he whispered, knuckles white against the glass. "I thought, if I built something real after, it would cancel out the sin." Olivia closed her eyes. Regret was an acid, slow but devastating. The next morning, headlines exploded. Blake's empire built on lies. Secret documents tie Nathan Blake to financial fraud. Investors pulled back. Sponsors withdrew. The Blake Foundation's biggest donors froze their contributions. Nathan's name, once gold, now carried the stink of scandal. And standing beside him in every photo, every headline, every smear, was Olivia Marlowe, the woman who had risen on the illusion of a perfect story. Sophia's timing had been exquisite. Olivia faced the public alongside Nathan, their smiles, brittle but brave. She answered interview questions with poise, deflected insinuations with elegance, but inside she was bleeding, not because of the lies about her, but because of the truths about him. She had fallen for a man built on fractures, on silences, on choices made in shadows, and now she didn't know if she was standing beside a partner or drowning alongside a liar. Late one night, after a particularly brutal news cycle, Olivia found Nathan alone in the townhouse library, a bottle of scotch half empty beside him. He looked up as she entered, eyes bloodshot, mouth twisted into a bitter smirk. "You should leave," he said hoarsely, "before you drown too." Olivia sat across from him, folding her hands calmly on the table. "You don't get to push me away just because you're bleeding." His laugh was a cracked, broken thing. "You don't understand," he rasped. "Everything I built, it's ashes now. You're tying yourself to a corpse." Olivia leaned in, voice low, fierce. "Maybe, but sometimes corpses come back to life." Nathan stared at her, something wounded flickering across his face. For a moment they sat there, two broken creatures clinging to the only thing that hadn't been stripped away, each other. Neither love nor loyalty had protected them, but maybe, just maybe, truth could. The next day, Olivia made a decision. If the world was going to tear them apart, they would do it on their terms, not Sophia's. At a hastily called press conference, she stood beside Nathan under a brutal storm of camera flashes. She didn't read a prepared statement. She didn't wear a mask. She told the truth about Nathan's mistakes, about his choices, about how guilt had built his empire as much as ambition had. She didn't defend him. She didn't excuse him. She told the world he was human, and if they wanted a god, they were worshipping in the wrong place. The fallout was immediate and nuclear. Some investors ran faster, but others, surprisingly, stayed. For the first time in years, Nathan wasn't a myth or a monster. He was a man, and strangely, some people respected him more for it. Sophia watched the conference from her penthouse, wine glass trembling slightly in her manicured hand. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Olivia was supposed to crumble. Nathan was supposed to fall alone, isolated, hated. But somehow, by dragging their scars into the light, they had become stronger. Not invincible, but unbreakable in a way Sophia hadn't anticipated. For the first time, doubt crept into Sophia's mind. Maybe this war wouldn't end with Nathan's destruction. Maybe it would end with her own. Sophia Monroe was not a woman who accepted defeat. She didn't just watch kingdoms fall, she crafted their ruin with precision. Olivia's resilience had surprised her, a waitress playing queen better than any of the born royals. But Sophia had built her life on the truth that everyone has, a breaking point, and she intended to find Olivia's, even if it meant burning the whole board down around them. The plan was simple, elegant, and cruel. She wouldn't attack Nathan anymore. He was battle-hardened, weathered. But Olivia, she was still new, still raw under the layers of polish. Sophia sent an invitation disguised as a philanthropic gala announcement, a night meant to celebrate Olivia's charity work, hosted at a historical museum downtown. It was bait. And judging by the RSVP received through official channels, Olivia had taken it. Nathan was wary. "It's too neat," he said, flipping the invitation over, as if secrets might be hidden in the ink. Olivia shrugged, feigning nonchalance she didn't feel. "We can't hide forever. If we don't show up, it looks like guilt." Nathan's jaw clenched, but he didn't argue. Part of surviving in their world meant dancing into traps and learning how to dismantle them from the inside. Olivia only hoped she was strong enough. The museum was a glittering palace of glass and stone, flooded with golden light and the scent of old money. Olivia entered on Nathan's arm, wearing black satin-like armor, her hair pulled into a sharp, severe twist. Every camera turned, every gaze sharpened. She smiled through it all, floating through conversations with dangerous grace. But beneath the performance, her skin prickled with warning. Something was wrong. She just couldn't see it yet. The first crack appeared during the champagne toast. A journalist, Olivia didn't recognize, cornered her near the marble staircase, microphone already live. "Miss Marlowe," he said loudly, drawing attention. "There are rumors that your charitable foundation is under investigation for financial improprieties. Care to comment?" A hush fell. Cameras clicked like gunshots. Nathan moved instantly, but Olivia raised a hand, stopping him. She turned, smiling serenely into the flashing chaos. "My team welcomes transparency," she said, voice calm as still water. "We'll be happy to cooperate with any legitimate investigation." A masterstroke, non-defensive, powerful. The journalist faltered, expecting fear, finding steel instead. But as Olivia turned away, another reporter shouted, "And what about your sealed arrest record in Queens?" The words hit harder than any slap. The room spun. Nathan froze. Olivia's blood turned to ice. She didn't have an arrest record, at least not one she remembered. Panic threatened to claw its way up her throat, but she swallowed it down. "I have nothing to hide," she said evenly, though her pulse thundered. She didn't wait for follow-ups. She cut through the crowd with Nathan at her side, heart pounding louder than the music. In the car, silence suffocated them. Nathan finally broke it. "Is it true?" he asked quietly. Olivia shook her head. "I don't know, I swear. I don't remember anything like that." Nathan exhaled sharply, fingers drumming against the leather seat. "Sophia's desperate," he said. "She's manufacturing history." Olivia clutched her hands together to hide the tremor. "But what if she's not?" she whispered. Nathan didn't answer, and the silence between them said everything. Doubt was a cancer, and it had been planted now, festering where trust had barely begun to take root. The next day, a file arrived anonymously at the townhouse, slid under the massive oak front, door without ceremony. Inside, a copy of a police record. Queens County Night Shift Booking Report. Olivia Brooks, age 17. Charge, trespassing and petty theft. Disposition, dismissed, sealed. Olivia stared at the paper, the words blurring, as tears filled her eyes. It was real, forgotten, buried, but real. Nathan sat across from her, his face unreadable. "You were a kid," he said finally. Olivia wiped her eyes angrily. "It doesn't matter, not to them." In the world they lived in now, perception was truth, and nuance was a casualty. Sophia had unearthed a skeleton Olivia didn't even remember burying. And now, it wasn't just about surviving, it was about proving she deserved to exist at all. Nathan reached across the table, his hand covering hers. "We tell the truth," he said. "Again, we don't hide. We own it." Olivia looked up at him, hope warring with terror. "And if they still tear me apart..." Nathan's jaw tightened. "Then we build something they can't touch." For the first time, Olivia saw it in his eyes. Not just strategy, faith in her, in them. That afternoon, she recorded a video. No PR spin, no polished talking points. Just her, sitting in the sun-drenched library, hands bare, voice steady. "I was 17. I made a mistake. I learned. I survived. And I refused to be defined by the worst night of my life." It went viral within hours. Support poured in. Slow at first, then tidal. Sophia watched from her penthouse, her fingers digging furrows into her mahogany desk. She had played her best card, and Olivia had turned it into a crown. But the game wasn't over. Sophia still had one weapon left, one secret that could shatter not just Olivia's future, but Nathan's soul. And this time, no one would walk away unbroken. The envelope arrived just before dawn, dropped on the townhouse doorstep with cruel precision. Nathan found it first, the white paper almost glowing under the grey morning light. No return address, no markings, just his name written in looping feminine script. He hesitated for a moment, some primal instinct telling him that once he opened it, there would be no going back. But curiosity and fear won. Inside were 2 photographs and a typed letter. The first photo showed a man Nathan recognized. Instantly, Marcus Hale, a former executive at Blake Industries, a man Nathan had fired under suspicious circumstances years ago. The second photo made his blood run cold. Marcus lying in a hospital bed, tubes snaking into his arms, eyes vacant. Below it, 3 chilling words. Blake did this. The letter was worse. It outlined accusations, manipulation, blackmail, sabotage, all pointing to Nathan as the architect of Marcus's downfall. Sophia's fingerprints were all over the wording, the meticulous cruelty. Nathan's mind raced. He had fired Marcus for cause, embezzlement, incompetence, but the optics were disastrous. If this surfaced now, in the storm of scandals already brewing, it would finish him. No amount of truth-telling would matter against a narrative. This damning. Nathan hid the envelope in his jacket as he returned inside. Olivia was still asleep upstairs, curled into the vast emptiness of the bed they barely shared these days. For a moment, Nathan considered burning the evidence, pretending it never arrived. But that lie, that instinct for self-preservation, was exactly what had almost destroyed him before. He couldn't run from this, not anymore. When Olivia came downstairs hours later, the scent of coffee filled the kitchen, masking the tension that thickened the air. Nathan didn't look up as she entered, his hands wrapped tightly around a mug, knuckles white. Olivia noticed immediately. "What happened?" she asked softly. Nathan set the mug down carefully, as if it might shatter. "We have a problem," he said. "A big one." He showed her the photographs and the letter, watched the light die in her eyes as she read. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Finally, Olivia whispered, "Is it true?" Nathan closed his eyes briefly, a flicker of pain across his features. "Not the way they'll make it seem, but yes, I made decisions that hurt people." Olivia pressed a hand to her mouth, turning away, grief and betrayal carving raw wounds through her. "I trusted you," she said, voice cracking. Nathan stood, moving toward her, desperate, broken. "I was trying to survive," he said. "You have to believe me." Olivia shook her head. "You keep saying that like it's an excuse. But survival doesn't erase the bodies left behind." Her hands trembled, not from anger, but from heartbreak. This was worse than Sophia's games. This was real. This was him. Nathan reached for her, but Olivia stepped back, out of reach. Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears, but her voice was steady. "I need to think," she said. "I need to breathe." Nathan opened his mouth. To argue, to beg, but the words died in his throat. He watched her walk away, each step a fracture spreading through the brittle glass of what remained between them. Outside, the world moved on. Headlines continued their relentless churn. Nathan Blake, architect of ruin, Olivia Marlowe. Complicit or victim, investors whispered. Friends turned cold. The empire that had once seemed unbreakable was now a sandcastle crumbling under rising tides, and Nathan sat alone in the vast, echoing townhouse, wondering when exactly he had lost everything worth saving. Olivia fled to the only place that still felt real, a tiny apartment she had kept under a false name, a relic from her old life. She sat on the bare mattress, knees drawn to her chest, replaying every moment with Nathan. Every smile, every lie, every half-truth offered like an apology. She loved him, God help her, she did. But love built on deception was just another beautiful coffin. Days blurred. Calls from Clara went unanswered. Messages from Nathan piled up unread. Olivia drifted through the city like a ghost, invisible again, anonymous. Part of her ached to forgive him, to believe that the man she had seen, vulnerable and real, was more than the mistakes he had buried. But another part, the part that remembered what it felt like to be powerless, screamed for self-preservation. Meanwhile, Sophia watched gleefully as the house of cards collapsed. She had played her final move, laid bare Nathan's darkest secret. But even in victory, an uneasy dissatisfaction gnawed at her. Olivia hadn't publicly abandoned Nathan. She hadn't sold him out, not yet. That silence, that unfinished loyalty, was a splinter Sophia couldn't ignore. True ruin required not just loss, but betrayal. Nathan made one final move. He called a press conference. This time, no prepared statements, no scripts, just him, standing alone before the flashing cameras, hands steady, voice raw with truth. He confessed everything. Not just the sins Sophia had weaponized, but the choices he had buried in shame. He didn't beg for forgiveness. He didn't ask for redemption. He just told the truth, naked and brutal. And across the city, Olivia watched, her hands shaking, her heart breaking all over again, because sometimes the bravest thing a man could do wasn't surviving the fall. It was standing in the ruins and refusing to lie about how he got there. The city was colder now. Olivia wrapped her coat tighter around her as she crossed Fifth Avenue, the early winter air biting through the fabric. She hadn't spoken to Nathan since the press conference. She had watched it alone, sitting on the floor of her tiny apartment, every word carving new scars inside her. Part of her had wanted to hate him, to turn off the screen and never look back, but the truth had sounded too real, too broken, too familiar. Days passed. Offers came, book deals, interviews, talk shows, desperate to brand her as either a victim or a villain. Olivia declined them all. She didn't want to be anyone's narrative anymore. Not Nathan's, not Sophia's, not the world's. For the first time in her life, she wasn't fighting to climb into someone else's story. She was standing at the edge of her own, and it terrified her more than anything else. One evening, Clara found her sitting in a coffee shop, tucked between two shuttered storefronts. Clara slid into the booth across from her without invitation. Her trench coat still damp from the rain. She didn't order anything, didn't waste words. "He's stepping down," she said flatly, "from Blake Industries, from everything." Olivia's stomach twisted painfully. Clara's eyes softened, just slightly. "He didn't want you to hear it from the news." The words sat heavy between them. "He's doing it for you," Clara added. Olivia stared down at her chipped coffee cup. "He shouldn't have to," Clara leaned in. "Maybe not, but sometimes love isn't about what should or shouldn't happen. It's about choosing the other person, even when it costs you everything." Olivia swallowed hard, the lump in her throat nearly choking her. "And what if I'm not enough to make that sacrifice worth it?" she whispered. Clara shook her head. "That's not your decision to make." She stood, tossing a few bills on the table. Before leaving, she said, "He's at the old rooftop, the one he used to escape the noise." Olivia closed her eyes as the door jingled behind Clara's retreating form. She knew the place. Nathan had taken her there once, on a night when the world felt too heavy and the sky was the only thing big enough to hold it. The rooftop was deserted when she arrived. Wind howled between the buildings, carrying the scent of rain and regret. Nathan stood at the edge, hands in his pockets, staring down at the endless blur of city lights. He didn't turn when Olivia approached. Maybe he didn't hear her. Maybe he was afraid to. She stopped a few feet behind him, heart hammering so loudly it drowned out the storm. For a long moment she just watched him, memorized him, not the powerful tycoon, not the scandalized CEO, just the man who had once taught her that survival and strength were not the same thing. "Nathan," she said finally, her voice almost lost to the wind. He turned slowly, his face a map of exhaustion and hope stitched together. For a second, neither of them moved. Then, cautiously, Nathan took a step closer. "I didn't expect you to come," he said, voice rough. Olivia swallowed, tasting rain on her lips. "I almost didn't." Nathan nodded once, as if he understood. All the words she hadn't said. "I'm letting it all go," he said. "Not for redemption, not for headlines, for me, for us." Olivia stared at him, the weight of the choice crashing over her. She could walk away, start fresh, build a life untouched by scandal, untouched by him. Or she could stay and risk everything again. Nathan reached out, not to pull her in, but to offer. His hand hung there, suspended in the cold air between them, waiting. Olivia closed her eyes. She thought of all the ways this could go wrong, all the ways it already had. And then she stepped forward, took his hand. And in that small, trembling gesture, she chose him. Not because he was perfect, not because she was blind, but because love, the real kind, is a decision made in the ruins. And sometimes, the only way to survive the fall is to fall together. The days that followed were quiet in a way neither of them expected. No headlines, no paparazzi lurking behind parked cars, no anonymous envelopes. For the first time in months, Olivia and Nathan tasted something dangerously close to peace. They spent long mornings wrapped in each other, their words slow and tentative, like explorers stepping carefully over thin ice. Neither dared call it healing, not yet, but the wounds weren't bleeding as openly anymore. Nathan left Blake Industries without ceremony. One final handshake, one final signature, and it was done. He didn't look back as the glass doors closed behind him. He had built that empire brick by ruthless brick, but standing there, free and uncertain, he realized he had been a prisoner too. Olivia waited for him outside, hands stuffed into the pockets of her coat, offering a smile that made the entire city seem irrelevant. They moved into a small loft downtown. Nothing like the palaces Nathan once ruled. Brick walls, creaky floors, a view of a crumbling mural instead of the skyline. But it was real. It was theirs. At night, they lay on a mattress on the floor. Plans half whispered between kisses. Dreams sketched in the spaces where fear used to live. For once, they weren't surviving. They were building. But peace, they soon learned, was just another fragile thing Sophia hadn't finished breaking. It started with the email. A simple message. No subject line, no sender, just 2 words. You're wrong. Nathan frowned, instinct prickling, but he didn't tell Olivia right away. He deleted it, moved on. He told himself it was a leftover spark from a fire already put out. But 3 days later, another arrived, this time attached to a file. A photo of a contract, unsigned but damning. A deal Sophia had made months ago, selling off what little influence she had left to someone much closer than Nathan could have imagined. It wasn't Sophia they needed to fear anymore. It was Evan Reed, Nathan's old friend, his original betrayer. Sophia had been the storm, but Evan was the earthquake rumbling beneath the surface all along. Documents revealed Evan's secret maneuvers, buying up Blake's subsidiaries through shell companies, consolidating power, while Nathan fought public battles. And now, with Nathan out of the way, Evan was poised to take everything Nathan had left, including the non-profit Olivia was helping to build. Nathan slammed the laptop shut, pacing the tiny loft like a caged animal. Olivia watched him, fear curling in her gut. "What do we do?" she asked quietly. Nathan stopped, his chest heaving. "I don't know," he said. The admission terrified her more than anything else. Nathan Blake didn't say, "I don't know," not ever. But now, he looked like a man standing at the edge of a battlefield with no weapons left. Olivia stepped into his path, grabbing his hands. "Then we start where we always do," she said. "Together." Nathan stared at her for a long moment, as if memorizing her face. Then he nodded. No plans, no perfect strategies, just the raw, stubborn will to survive one more war. Olivia didn't ask for details. She didn't need them. Trust wasn't about blind faith anymore. It was about choosing to stay when every bone in your body screamed to run. They went public fast, before Evan could. They exposed the shell companies, connected the dots, told the world who was really pulling the strings behind the scenes. Evan fought back, of course. Denials, countersuits, media blitzes. But it didn't matter. The public, battered by months of scandals and half-truths, had grown hungry for real villains. And Evan fit the role perfectly, smooth, polished, rotten inside, just like the ones they had worshipped before. Still, the cost was brutal. Old allies turned cold. New enemies sprang up like weeds. Every win tasted like ashes. Nathan lost millions. Olivia lost friends. But somehow, standing shoulder to shoulder, in the wreckage, they found something stronger than money or reputation. They found each other. Sophia, watching it all unfold from afar, realized too late. She had aimed to destroy them, and instead she had reforged them into something unbreakable. Revenge, it seemed, had a strange sense of irony, and this time it was Sophia who was left standing alone in the ruins. The dust hadn't even settled yet, but Olivia and Nathan began rebuilding anyway. Not because it was easy, not because they were healed, but because moving forward was the only thing left. They bought a rundown brick building in the Lower East Side, a former warehouse with cracked windows and graffiti clinging to its bones. It was ugly, broken, imperfect, and in a strange way it felt like home. They worked side by side, sanding floors, painting walls, fixing leaks with cheap tools and clumsy hands. It was hard, frustrating, exhausting, and somehow perfect. At night they fell into bed covered in dust and sweat, laughing over blistered palms and paint-streaked cheeks. They weren't kings and queens anymore. They were builders, survivors, people willing to stitch something new from the wreckage of old mistakes. The building wasn't just for them. It was for the city that had tried to chew them up and spit them out. They called it the Haven, a community center for kids like Olivia had once been. Lost, invisible, drowning in a world that only cared about polish and profit. It wasn't glamorous. There were no red carpets, no sponsorships, just real work, real hope, and for the first time, real peace. But peace, they knew, was fragile, and the past didn't loosen its claws easily. One rainy evening, after a long day fixing the roof, Olivia found an envelope wedged under the front door. No handwriting this time, no games, just a single printed sheet inside. It was a photograph, grainy, black and white. Olivia sitting in Nathan's lap, laughing during the early days of their staged engagement. Someone had captured the intimacy and twisted it. On the back, a single sentence: "You were always just an arrangement." Olivia stared at it, her hands trembling. She wasn't naive. She knew the line between real and fake had once been blurred, messy. But this photo, this reminder, clawed open old insecurities. Was it ever real? Was she just another deal Nathan had made to fix a broken image? Doubt seeped in, slow and poisonous, more dangerous than any scandal or headline they had survived. When Nathan found her an hour later, she was sitting on the cold floor, the photo crumpled in her fist. His face changed when he saw it, anger flashing, then sorrow. He knelt beside her without a word, gently taking the photo from her hand. For a moment, he said nothing. Then, softly, "It was never just a deal. Maybe it started that way. But it became real the first night you made me laugh without meaning to." Olivia shook her head, tears spilling over. "How do we know what's real anymore?" she whispered. Nathan cupped her face, forcing her to meet his eyes. "Because we're still here," he said. "Because after everything, every lie, every betrayal, we chose each other. Not contracts, not survival. Us." His voice cracked on the last word, raw and unpolished. The truth wasn't always beautiful, but it was theirs. They burned the photo together in the small fireplace they had rigged in the corner of the building. Watched the paper curl and blacken, the past crumbling into ash. It wasn't a grand gesture. It wasn't enough to erase everything they had endured. But it was a start, a choice. To stop letting ghosts drive the future. To stop measuring themselves by the worst moments of their lives. As the Haven opened its doors to the first group of children, Nathan stood back, watching Olivia greet every new arrival with a smile that didn't hide anything. No masks, no performances, just honest, messy hope. He realized then that he wasn't just rebuilding a building. He was rebuilding himself, piece by piece, not the titan who conquered boardrooms, not the ghost who lived in shadows, just a man. Later that night, sitting on the rooftop, Olivia rested her head on Nathan's shoulder. The city stretched out before them, battered, chaotic, beautiful. "Do you ever wish things had been different?" she asked quietly. Nathan thought. About it. About all the ways life could have bent. About all the pain they could have avoided. He tightened his arm around her. "If it meant not finding you," he said, "never." Olivia smiled, small and true. They didn't need the world's approval anymore. They didn't need crowns or thrones. All they needed was each other. And the courage to keep choosing each other. Every broken, beautiful day ahead. The past had a funny way of finding you when you thought you had finally outrun it. Olivia was sorting through a stack of letters at the Haven when she found the envelope, yellowed, battered, addressed in shaky handwriting she recognized. Instantly, her breath caught in her throat. It was from her mother, a woman she hadn't seen or heard from in over a decade. A woman Olivia had spent years convincing herself no longer mattered. She sat alone in the office, the buzz of children playing down the hall fading into silence. Her fingers trembled as she opened the envelope, pulling out a single creased letter. No apology, no excuses, just a plea. "I'm sick," the letter said. "I need to see you before it's too late." Olivia closed her eyes, the weight of old wounds pressing against her chest. She had built a life without that ghost. Could she bear letting it in again? Nathan found her an hour later, still staring at the letter. Tears she refused to shed burning behind her eyes. He didn't ask questions. He just knelt beside her, pressing his forehead against her knees, the way he had once done in another lifetime when everything had been crumbling. "You don't have to go," he whispered. "You owe her nothing." Olivia's hand tightened around the paper. "Maybe," she said, "but maybe I owe it to myself." 2 days later, Olivia stood outside the shabby nursing home on the edge of the city. The building smelled of bleach and lost time. She hesitated on the cracked sidewalk, heart pounding. Part of her wanted to run, to pretend this was someone else's life, but she forced her feet forward, each step a battle against fear older than memory. Nathan waited in the car, giving her space, trusting her to face this alone. Her mother was thinner than she remembered, smaller, a ghost of the woman who had once filled rooms with rage and cigarette smoke. She looked up from the bed, eyes glassy but sharp. Recognition flickered, a smile that didn't quite reach her hollow cheeks. "You came," she rasped. Olivia stood at the foot of the bed, fists clenched at her sides. She didn't know what she had expected. Regret, tears, redemption. None of it was there. They spoke for hours, or maybe it was minutes. Time bent and blurred. Her mother apologized, but not well. Blamed bad luck, bad men, bad breaks. She praised Olivia's success in one breath and mocked her rich girl manners in the next. It was messy, infuriating, human. And somewhere between the anger and the sadness, Olivia realized something. Forgiveness wasn't for her mother. It was for herself. When she left, the sky was bleeding into dusk. Nathan stood beside the car, arms crossed, worry etched into every line of his face. Olivia walked straight into his arms, burying her face against his chest. "It didn't fix anything," she whispered. Nathan kissed the top of her head. "It wasn't about fixing," he said. "It was about letting go." And for the first time in years, Olivia felt something deep inside her unclench. Back at the loft, Olivia sat on the fire escape, legs dangling over the edge, watching the city breathe. Nathan joined her, a blanket draped over both their shoulders. For a while, they said nothing. They didn't need to. Silence wasn't emptiness anymore. It was peace, the kind you earned, fought for, bled for. Olivia leaned her head against Nathan's shoulder and closed her eyes, feeling the weight of survival give way to something lighter. The next day, a package arrived at the Haven. Inside, a framed photo. Olivia, age 7, beaming on a rusted swing set, a note taped to the back. "You were always meant to shine." I just didn't know how to help you. Olivia traced the photograph with trembling fingers. Not forgiveness, not absolution, but a small, broken offering of love. And sometimes, broken love was better than none at all. Nathan found her crying, softly on the office couch. He didn't say anything, just held her, rocking slightly, as the past finally bled out of her veins. Later that night, Olivia pinned the photo to the wall at the Haven, right above the front door, where every child who entered could see it. A reminder that no matter where you came from, no matter who tried to define you, you could always choose who you became. And sometimes the hardest wars weren't against enemies outside, but against the ghosts you carried inside. Just when they thought the battles were over, the storm returned. It wasn't a scandal this time. No tabloid headlines, no whispered rumors. It was colder, legal, deadly. A cease and desist order arrived at the Haven, crisp and clinical, delivered by a man in a navy suit with dead eyes. Nathan read it once, twice, his jaw tightening with every line. Evan Reed was suing to seize the property, claiming financial misconduct in the purchase. Olivia's hands shook as she held the papers. "He can't do this," she whispered. Nathan looked up, rage simmering under his skin. "He can. He's leveraged the banks. He's weaponized the contracts we signed during the non-profit setup." Olivia sank into a chair, the weight of it all pressing down again. They had fought so hard to build something pure, and now it was slipping away with the stroke of a pen. Nathan paced the small office, mind racing. "We have three options," he said. "We settle, lose everything, we fight in court, spend years and millions we don't have, or—" Olivia looked up, sensing the hesitation in his voice. "Or what?" Nathan stopped, running a hand through his hair. "We find a way to make him walk away, publicly, permanently." Olivia's chest tightened. "How?" she asked. Nathan smiled grimly. "By hitting him where he actually bleeds." For days they dug, through old files, old alliances, old sins. Evan thought he had buried deep. And finally, they found it, tucked inside dusty public records, proof of Evan's illegal lobbying efforts years ago, hidden behind shell charities. Enough to not just ruin him, but erase him from every boardroom he had ever dreamed of ruling. Olivia stared at the documents, a sour taste rising in her throat. They had the weapon now, but could they live with using it? Nathan didn't pressure her. He laid the choice at her feet. "If we release this," he said, voice low, "we become the people we hated." Olivia sat in silence, staring at the walls of the Haven, walls they had built with blood and tears and stubborn, messy love. Slowly, she shook her head. "We don't destroy him. We expose him." Nathan frowned. "Same thing." Olivia's eyes hardened. "No, we show the truth. We let the world decide." The press conference was hastily arranged. No glitz, no fanfare, just Olivia standing behind a battered podium, documents in hand, cameras flashing wildly. She didn't smear Evan, didn't rant. She simply presented the facts, the shell companies, the fake charities, the backroom deals. Nathan stood at the back of the room, arms crossed, pride and worry battling in his chest. Olivia didn't just survive the fire, she became it. Evan tried to fight back, of course, tried to spin the story, tried to silence the outrage, but it was too late. The machine he had built to climb was now chewing him alive. Banks froze his accounts. Partners abandoned him. Even Sophia, watching from her lonely penthouse, didn't lift a finger. Evan Reed, who had once believed he could puppeteer empires, crumbled under the weight of his own greed. And the Haven, it was saved. The cease and desist withdrawn. The lawsuit dropped. The children kept coming, laughter echoing through halls that had nearly been emptied by greed. Nathan and Olivia celebrated quietly, sitting on the rooftop, passing a cheap bottle of wine back and forth. No lavish parties, no public victories, just the two of them, bruised and battered and still breathing. Nathan raised his bottle in a mock toast. "To survival," he said. Olivia clinked hers against his. "To living," she corrected, smiling for real this time. The stars were clearer that night, the city quieter, and for the first time Olivia believed it wasn't just luck that had brought them here. It was choice, it was fight, it was love, scraped raw and rebuilt from ashes. Nathan pressed a kiss to her temple, whispering against her skin, "We're not who we were anymore." And Olivia, smiling through tears she didn't bother hiding, whispered back, "Thank God for that." The victory tasted sweet, but its aftertaste was bittersweet. With Evan out of the picture, the threat dissolved like mist in sunlight. Yet without the fight, Olivia found herself staring at Nathan across the quiet loft, wondering what came next. They had built everything on war, survival, loyalty, defiance. But could something real grow in peace? Or were they only good at bleeding together, not breathing together? Nathan sensed it too. The unease, the silence that wasn't born of contentment, but of fear. One evening, as rain lashed against the windows, he turned to her on the battered couch. "We need to talk," he said, his voice rough from disuse. Olivia nodded slowly, feeling her stomach knot. "Yeah," she whispered, "we do." And so they sat, two warriors out of armor, stripped down to nothing but fragile hearts and harder truths. Nathan took her hand, his thumb brushing slow circles against her skin. "I love you," he said simply. No grand declarations, no dramatic promises, just truth, bare and vulnerable. Olivia closed her eyes, letting the words settle into the cracks inside her. "I love you too," she said. And for a moment, it was enough. Until Nathan added, voice barely audible, "But is it enough to fix what we broke?" The question hung heavy between them. Love wasn't a magic trick. It couldn't erase scars, couldn't rebuild trust overnight, couldn't promise tomorrow would be easier. It could only offer one thing, the choice to stay. Every single day. Olivia stood up, pacing the tiny living room, arms wrapped around herself. "I don't want to lose you," she said, "but I don't want to lose myself either." Nathan watched her, pain flickering across his face. "Then maybe we need to stop trying to go back to what we were," he said. "Maybe we need to build something new, something honest, even if it's ugly, even if it's hard." She stopped by the window, looking out at the city that had tried to destroy them and failed. "You're asking me to risk everything again," she said, voice shaking. Nathan rose, crossing the room to stand behind her, not touching, just close enough that she could feel his warmth. "I'm asking you," he said quietly, "to risk it for yourself this time. Not for me, not for survival, for you." Tears slipped silently down Olivia's cheeks, not from sadness, from fear, from hope. From the terrifying realization that maybe she wasn't broken beyond repair after all. She turned to face him, hands trembling. "I don't know if I know how to be whole," she confessed. Nathan smiled. "A sad, beautiful thing." "Neither do I. Maybe we don't have to be. Maybe we just have to keep choosing each other anyway." They didn't decide that night. There were no neat endings, no cinematic kisses in the rain. Just two people holding each other like a lifeline, scared, and brave and stubborn enough to keep trying. Days passed. Life crept back in. The haven flourished. The loft slowly became a home. And Olivia and Nathan, scarred and stubborn, began the slow, painful, beautiful work of learning to live, not just survive. They fought sometimes, over small things, over old fears. But they laughed too, harder and freer than they ever had in their old lives. And every time doubt crept in, Olivia looked at Nathan, this man who had once built empires from lies and now built hope from nothing. And she chose to stay, not because it was easy, but because real love wasn't easy. It was choosing the same imperfect soul over and over, even when it was messy, especially then, especially when everything inside you screamed to run. Because sometimes the bravest thing you could do wasn't surviving alone, it was surviving together. Opportunity came in the form of a sleek envelope, heavy and expensive, delivered one rainy afternoon when neither Olivia nor Nathan expected. It inside was an offer, a grant from a prestigious international foundation to expand the Haven. Not just locally, globally, Paris, Tokyo, Rio, a network of centers just like the one they had built from blood and hope. Fully funded, no debt. A fresh start, far away from the ghosts of New York. Olivia stared at the proposal, heart thudding. It was everything they had fought for. Validation, security, a way to reach more lives, and yet something twisted uneasily inside her. Nathan watched her across the kitchen counter, cautious, knowing her too well by now to mistake silence for excitement. "It's a chance," he said softly. Olivia nodded, lips pressed tight. "Yeah," she whispered, "a chance to leave it all behind." That night, they lay in bed, the letter between them like a living thing. The rain tapped against the windows, soft and relentless. Nathan turned to her in the dark. "Do you want it?" he asked. Olivia stared at the ceiling, tracing invisible scars. "I don't know," she said honestly. "Part of me wants to run so badly it hurts, and part of me doesn't want to give up what we built here." Nathan pulled her closer, his voice barely more than breath against her skin. "Wherever you go, I go." It wasn't a promise made from desperation anymore. It was a truth built from survival. Olivia closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the decision settle deeper. Starting over would be easy, safer, cleaner, but leaving would also mean surrendering the one place where they had fought so hard to become whole. The next morning, the Haven buzzed with life. Children laughing, teenagers arguing over broken basketballs, parents dropping off donations, volunteers painting new murals on battered brick walls. Olivia walked the halls slowly, absorbing every detail, every sound. These weren't just people. They were stories, struggles, small victories stitched together into a tapestry more beautiful than any empire Nathan had ever built. In the art room, a girl about 10 years old tugged at Olivia's sleeve, proudly showing her a crayon drawing. It was of the Haven, their Haven, bursting with flowers and light. "This is my favorite place," the girl said shyly. "It makes me feel like I'm not invisible." Olivia crouched down, her throat tight. "You're not," she whispered, meaning every word. "You never were." She found Nathan outside, repairing a broken fence post with calloused hands and stubborn determination. For a moment she just watched him, this man who had once ruled boardrooms with iron fists, now mending a playground with nothing but love and grit. He looked up and smiled, sweat glistening on his forehead. "Decided yet?" he asked, pretending nonchalance. Olivia walked toward him, heart hammering. "I have," she said, voice steady. Nathan set the hammer down, waiting. Olivia took a deep breath. "We stay." Relief flashed in his eyes, so fierce it almost knocked her back. "Are you sure?" he asked. Olivia nodded. "We fought too hard to build this, to build us. I don't want to start over somewhere easier. I want to finish what we started, here, with you." Nathan pulled her into his arms, burying his face in her. "Hair." "Thank God," he whispered fiercely. Olivia laughed through the tears burning her eyes. "Besides," she teased, "I'm not sure Paris is ready for two stubborn survivors like us." Nathan laughed too, the sound broken and beautiful. They had chosen each other before, in wreckage, in war. Now they chose each other again, in peace. The letter was politely declined. New York, with all its scars and noise and beauty, was their home. The Haven grew slowly, imperfectly, day by day. They expanded to nearby neighborhoods. They fixed more fences, built more classrooms. And somehow, In mending broken walls, they mended themselves. They still fought sometimes, still struggled, but the fights didn't break them anymore. They became part of the story, part of the messy, magnificent process of building a life worth living. And every night, when the city lights flickered like tired stars outside their window, Nathan whispered the same words into Olivia's ear. "Wherever you are, that's home." Years passed, but not in the way that left people behind. The haven flourished, stubbornly growing in the cracks of a city, still trying to forget its broken children. Nathan and Olivia didn't become legends. They didn't crave that anymore. They became something rarer, a steady presence, a lighthouse for the lost. Their names didn't make headlines. Their work did. Quiet, consistent, healing in small, patient stitches. They never married, not because they didn't believe in forever, but because they believed in choice. Every morning, Nathan chose Olivia. Every night, Olivia chose Nathan. Rings didn't matter. Promises whispered into the spaces between dreams mattered. The city moved around them, rising, falling, forgetting, remembering, but their little corner of it remained stubbornly, fiercely alive. One grey afternoon, as winter loosened its grip, Olivia stood in front of a class of teenagers at the Haven. She told her story for the first time, the real one, not the polished media version, the waitress, the runaway, the liar, the survivor. She watched their eyes widen, not with judgment but with recognition. Pain understood pain. Hope recognized itself even in broken mirrors. Afterward, one boy, no older than 16, stayed behind. He didn't say much, just pressed a crumpled drawing into her hand. It was of a house, crooked walls, uneven windows, but bright and filled with messy, stubborn light. Underneath he had written, "Home isn't a place, it's a choice." Olivia closed her eyes, swallowing the lump in her throat. Sometimes the universe spoke softly, sometimes it shouted. That night, Olivia found Nathan repairing a broken shelf in the community library. She sat on the floor beside him, watching his hands. "Move with patient determination. Do you ever regret it?" she asked quietly. Nathan didn't look up. "Regret what?" Olivia traced patterns on the dusty floor. "Staying, choosing me, choosing this instead of the easier life you could have had." Nathan set down his tools and turned to her. His eyes were still fierce, still stormy, but softer now, like he had finally learned that strength didn't always roar. "Olivia," he said, "you were never the hard choice. You were the only choice." She leaned into him, letting the warmth of his body ground her. Outside, the city lights flickered to life, stubborn as ever. They sat there in silence, the weight of old wars and new dreams wrapping around them like a second skin. Eventually, Nathan pulled something from his pocket, a small, battered photograph. The one Olivia had once pinned above the Haven's door. The little girl on the swing set, the dream that had somehow survived them both. He handed it to her, no words needed. She smiled through tears, pressing the photo to her heart. "Let's build another haven," she whispered. Nathan grinned, the kind of grin that cracked storms wide open. "Where?" he asked. Olivia kissed him lightly, their foreheads touching. "Wherever we are," she said. "That's enough." And it was. It always would be, because home wasn't glass towers or golden addresses. Home was two battered souls who had chosen each other again and again, even when the world tried to tear them apart, especially then, especially forever. If you've made it this far, let us know what you thought about the story. Rate it from 1 to 10 in the comments. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you're not subscribed yet, don't forget to subscribe to catch all our upcoming stories.